Hello everyone, welcome to the final section of our entire course. This is DevOps and Automation. We'll be starting with CloudFormation, which is one of the DevOps or automation tool provided by AWS. So CloudFormation is AWS native. This is used to automate a lot of infrastructure provisioning in AWS. This is our agenda. We'll see what infrastructure as a code means. The reason being, AWS says that CloudFormation is infrastructure as a code service provided by AWS. So we'll see what does that actually mean. Then we'll see the different components of CloudFormation, how CloudFormation works, templates, parameters, resources which are created by CloudFormation. As usual, we'll have a demo. Then we'll go into mappings, functions, and pseudo parameters, and then we'll conclude CloudFormation session with a demo. Before starting this session, let me tell you something. There's a disclaimer. This is an introduction of CloudFormation. CloudFormation is pretty huge, and there's a lot of syntactical things which you have to take care of when you talk about, or basically when you work on CloudFormation. So this is a basic course. I'll show you a few examples. I'll tell you the components which are needed. But if you want to work on automation or DevOps using CloudFormation, you'll have to practice a lot. A lot. So you can start with whatever I'll be discussing in this course. Then taking this course as the base, you can go ahead and work on CloudFormation. One more thing, I'll be discussing everything whatever is needed in CloudFormation. So it's not that I'll skip a few portions. So whatever we have, whatever is provided in CloudFormation by AWS, we'll discuss all those. But the demo would be a little basic. It will not be too advanced. So IaaC, or infrastructure as a code. What does it mean? How can you code an infrastructure? To work on AWS, we need a region. Then we need an AZ. Then we provision various services using either Management Console or CLI or SDKs. Till now, we have been using the Management Console, and I've also shown you a little bit of command line interface. But the thing is that, think for a moment that, suppose you have to provision hundreds of EC2 resources, or let's say your architecture contains a lot of components like VPC, EC2, autoscaling, S3, EBS, RDS, DynamoDB. You need some amount of IAM, you need SNS notifications, cloud log agents, you need to set up Route 53 hosted zones, you need to set up Elastic file system, etc. And you have multiple environments. Every organization has multiple environments, starting with POC, then dev, then QA, QC, production. And for each and every environment, starting from POC to production, you need multiple EC2 instances, or multiple Route 53 hosted zones, or multiple Elastic load balancers, multiple S3 bucket. How do you do that? I have seen environments wherein you have thousands of EC2 instances. How do you launch those? Do you go to Management Console and click launch instance 1000 times? No, that is of course that is not an optimum way to do it. You can use CLI. That is also fine. You can use a shell script and then you can use CLI for that. But there are a lot of challenges doing that. Trust me, I have done that. I have automated provisioning of infrastructure using shell script, but it's a little complicated. Unless you are very good at shell scripting, things might go out of your hands. That is where infrastructure as a code comes into picture. So what you do is you write a code that you need these components or these services which you would provision as part of your infrastructure. So write a code and execute that code. So once that code is executed in a particular region, in a particular AZ, all the components or all the services which you need, those will be provisioned automatically by the code. You can do it not only once, you can do it multiple times. You can do it as many times as you want. If something goes wrong, execute the code again and the entire thing will be provisioned for you, and the entire infrastructure will be provisioned for you. There's one more advantage. You can provision it for different environments, maybe for dev, maybe for protection. Now you might ask, how can I do it? For dev, I might need a different configuration. For protection, I might need a different configuration. For example, for dev, you'll not typically use multi-AZ deployment, but for production, you'll definitely use multi-AZ deployment of RDS or maybe read replicas. As it is an infrastructure as a code, that means it's a program accepts something called variables or parameters. So you can parameterize this very program and you can run the same program multiple times for different environments. So you write the code once and you execute it multiple times. Not only that, you add parameterization on top of it. So for different environments, your provisioning would be different based on the parameters which you have defined in the program or in the code. That is the concept of infrastructure as a code, and CloudFormation is a very powerful tool as far as AWS is concerned. We have something called Terraform also. That's an open source tool provided by HashiCorp. So we'll see Terraform in our next lecture. So in this lecture, we'll discuss CloudFormation infrastructure as a code service. As I said, CloudFormation is very powerful. You can do a lot of stuff using CloudFormation, and you need to know JSON. You need to know the syntax of JSON. There are not much concepts in CloudFormation. It is crawling with syntaxes. I'll show you how to put all those syntaxes together to start working on it. But remember one thing, you'll need help of CloudFormation templates or CloudFormation documentation to create your code. Otherwise you can't do it, because there are hundreds of services provided by AWS, and on top of it you have hundreds of syntaxes. So it's more than what you can comprehend. So keep the CloudFormation documentation open when you're writing CloudFormation template or codes basically. Let's see the different components of CloudFormation. CloudFormation has three components to start with. The first one is template. I was talking about infrastructure as a code, wherein you write a code to provision your infrastructure. So template is the place where you write your code in. There is a JSON formatted file which contains information about what AWS resources to be launched. Let us take back for a moment and go to EC2. What did we do with EC2? We launched EC2 instance. What did we do with EBS? We created EBS volumes and then we attached it to an EC2 instance. We created Route 53 hosted zones and either aliased them with a load balancer or directed them to a particular IP address or CNAME them with S3 static website. So all those things which we have done so far in our demo, in our lab, can be automated using templates. As template is a code in a JSON format file, we can also parameterize it. So we can say what should be the name of the VPC, what should be the name of the EC2 instance, what tag should it get, what should be the instance type. So it's not that we have to hard code everything, we can parameterize those things. So using template, we create the second component that is called stack. Now stack is a set of all related resources which are launched and managed together. It takes a template as an input and it creates a stack. So let me give you an example. Suppose you want to create a two-tier application, front-end tier and back-end tier. Front-end tier would contain both the web and application tier, and the back-end tier would contain RDS database. Let's say Oracle RDS. So what you have to do, you have to create a VPC, you have to create public and private subnets, you have to create network ACLs, you have to create security groups. Then you have to launch EC2 instances either in the public or private subnet, attach security group to those EC2 instances. Then you have to create RDS DB instance. We attach security group to RDS DB instance also. We mention whether automated backups and everything are needed or not. We provide maintenance window. Then we stitch them together to create the two-tier architecture. So everything can be done using a template. So we write codes in the template so that we provision all these things which I've said so far. And then when that environment is created using a template, that is called a stack. So the stack would contain, starting from VPC to RDSDB instance. So it would contain VPC, it would contain the subnets, network ACLs, security groups, EC2 instances, RDSDB instances, everything what you mention in the template and run together. So stack is an end-to-end infrastructure which you provision using a single template. You provision them using a single template because you want to group them together. Now remember one thing. Once you create a stack and once you delete it, all the resources related to that stack would be deleted by default. If you have launched VPCs, if you have launched subnets, you have created S3 buckets, you have launched RDSDB instances, once you delete the stack, all those resources will be deleted one after the other. Of course, you can change that using something called deletion policy, which we'll discuss later on. The third component is the change sets. Once you provision the resources, you might want to change those resources. For example, you want to scale up the EC2 instance from, let's say, m2.large to m4.xlarge. You want to change the provisioned IOPS rate of the EBS volumes of your RDSDB instance or EC2 instance. So you do that using change sets. Change sets are used to make modifications to existing running resources. So use template to write the code, and using that template, you create something called stack. Then when you want to make modifications in that stack, you use change sets. Why do you use change sets? Because before implementing the updates, change sets would show you that what impact you'd get because of the modifications. So how the modifications will impact your existing resources. Whether CloudFormation will delete a few resources to create a new one or will change something altogether. Now let's see how does it work. How does all these things fit together? The things which I have discussed like template and stack. Change sets is something which will be necessary only when you want to make some modifications on the existing resources. But the first thing which is important, which you definitely need, are templates and stacks. So how do you do that? So we'll see different steps which are needed to provision an entire environment using CloudFormation. The first thing which you do is you create a template using JSON syntax. Template is nothing but the code which you are writing to provision your infrastructure. You can create a template in your local computer, or you can use an existing template which has been uploaded to an S3 bucket as an object. Also, after you create the template in your local computer, you can upload it to S3 bucket also. The next step is to create a stack. So stack creation does the actual work. It provisions the different resources which you have mentioned in the template. While creating the stack, it takes input either from S3 bucket, which you have uploaded, or it can take input from the local computer also, the file which you have put in the local computer. So this stack is then provided to CloudFormation. And then CloudFormation goes and provisions all the infrastructure which you have mentioned in the template. I'm reiterating the fact that CloudFormation is very powerful. It is one of the most powerful automation tools provided by AWS. Now, let's take a look at templates. How templates work. What are the different things which you have in a template? The template itself contains multiple things or multiple subcomponents. The first component is the format version. It'll mention what is the format version of the template. It's okay if you don't mention it. So this is not mandatory. Then you mention a description. What is the template used for? Description also is not mandatory, but this is very important for maintenance purpose. If you mention that what this CloudFormation template would do, then someone else who has not written the code might get an idea how to run this template. Then we have parameters. As I said earlier, you can parameterize any code. So it's no different with CloudFormation templates also. So parameters are input parameters which you passed as user variables. And those variables can be used in the template to create the resources which you mentioned in the template. For dev, the resources might be different. For QC, the same resources might be of different type. And for production, the resources might be different. So using the same template, you can create multiple stacks for different environments using parameters. So parameters are environment if you want reusability of the same template on multiple different environments. Then we have something called mappings. Mapping is nothing but a table which you mention in the CloudFormation template itself. It maps a name to its corresponding value. For example, if the region is US West 1, then pick this AMI for EC2 instance. If the region is US East 1 or North Virginia, then pick this AMI for EC2 instance. So basically it's a table which maps a particular name to its corresponding value. Both parameters and mappings are not mandatory as well. The one and only mandatory component of a template is resources. There cannot be no template without a resource. You have to have resources in a template. So using resources, you mention what resources you want to create in the stack. And these resources will be launched in the stack. And then finally, we have something called output, which declares output values which can later be used in the same template. Output is also not mandatory. So the only mandatory thing in a template is resources. Rest all are optional. Let's take a look into parameters a little bit more now. So this is the syntax of providing parameters in a particular CloudFormation template. I know it looks complex, but once you get a hold of it, it's not that complex. You start with parameters. Parameter is a keyword. Then you mention parameter name or ID and its particular type and properties. So there are different properties like what are the allowed values, what would be the default value if you do not provide anything in this parameter, what would be the maximum minimum length and value. Type can be of different types, like for example, it can be an AZ, it can be an instance ID, it can be a key pair name, it can be a VPC ID, it can be an S3 bucket. This type is the parameter data type. Now this is different from this type, which is actually the property of the parameter. So the property of the parameter can be string, number, list, or command delimited. List is nothing but an array. Don't worry too much about the syntax because as I said, you'll get hold of it. Initially it looks a little difficult, and if you see it, it's JSON. Then we have resources, which is the one and only mandatory parameter in a CloudFormation template. So this is how you define resources. The keyword is also resources. You mention the resource name or ID. Now remember one thing, the name or ID, these are logical. That means you define it. It can be any name. Then we have resource types. Using resource type, you notify CloudFormation which AWS resource type you want to provision here. So it can be an EC2 instance, it can be an Elastic Load Balancer, it can be an S3 bucket, etc. etc. Then the final one is properties. You have to mention properties for each and every resource which you define. And in the resources document itself, you can have multiple resources, which we'll see in our demo. So resource type is very important. As I said, using resource type, you tell CloudFormation that, see, I want to create this resource. The resource which I'm provisioning is an EC2 instance, or a network ACL, or a Route 53 route, or a VPC, or a security group, etc. Then you have properties. So properties can have multiple values depending on the resource type. So properties would change along with resource type because different resource type might have different properties. For example, EC2 instance might need a key pair name, but a VPC would not need a key pair name. So your properties would change based on the resource type. So this is an example of an EC2 instance. So you can mention the availability zone, you can mention block device mappings, whether the EC2 instance would be EBS optimized or not, what image ID or AMI the EC2 instance should use, what would be the instance type, whether it's a T2 micro, M4 large, C4.x large, key pair name, private IP address, which subnet you want to create the EC2 instance in, etc. Had it been VPC, the properties would have changed. For VPC, it would be different. Now remember the syntax. So resource type has these two colons in between. It is not possible to remember all the syntaxes. So that's why I say go to the CloudFormation reference documentation and always keep that open when you write a CloudFormation template. I'll show you how you can go there, which page to open for, and how to refer to CloudFormation documentation.